Hi guys, Peter here, head coach at the 6 Day Fat Loss Revolution, and I'm going to take you through fat loss made simple. I'm hoping I have made this super simple, and I'm hoping you're all going to take a lot away from this. So if you do enjoy it, please like and share, please tag some friends into it, and yeah, let's spread the knowledge. So let's get into it. So, introduction. So, just things that I want to cover during this 20 to 30 minute ish webinar, and that's who we are. So me and my team. How does weight loss occur? Because that is the $1,000,000 question. I want to talk about energy balance. I want to talk about mindset. I want to answer some myths and give some top tips. And then a Q&A, which is obviously, this is pre-recorded, so this will go out to you guys, and hopefully you will comment and I will answer some questions. So let's get into it. So who we are before we get into energy balance. So 6 Day Fat Loss Revolution is a program that is online, and I'm the head coach, and I have 3 other coaches in Mitch, Kerry, and Jamie. We are evidence-based. We provide a huge amount of support. We provide personalised goals to all of our clients. And we're kind of on a mission to really educate people and offer something very, very different to your standard, how do I put this diplomatically? Available diets that are out there, your mainstream diets that don't really personalize things, that do confuse things, I feel, for consumers to keep them at an arm's length, and yeah, not really empower people to understand how to achieve their goals, and get them to where they want to get to. So we are very different. If you do enjoy what I'm talking about, and it does make a lot of sense to you, head over to our website, have a look, head over to our social media pages, drop us a message, and I'll have a chat with anyone. So anyway, let's get into it, because this is the bit that you're here for. So energy balance. So energy balance, I've put up a picture of some scales. So the scales represent one side obviously energy in and one side energy out. So basically, when it comes to energy balance, if you imagine scales or seesaw, however you want to do it, but energy in, okay, is your calories through food and drink, okay? So energy into your body is through your calories, okay? So that will be a certain amount, and obviously depending on the person and how much you consume will depend obviously how much you consume, and how much energy comes in. And then you've got energy out, okay, which can be broken down into the following areas. So your BMR, your NEAT, your exercise, and what's called TEF, which I'm going to go into shortly. But hopefully, and again, energy balance and making this simple for you, it is energy in and energy out. So either your energy is higher in than it is out, or the other way around, or the same, okay? But if your energy in is higher than your energy out, you will put weight on. Simple, okay? That's called a calorie surplus. If you're consuming the same amount of energy that your body is burning, okay, so it's at maintenance, it's the same, you'll maintain your weight, okay? And then if it's the other way around, so if your energy in is lower than your energy out, you will lose weight. And it is as simple as that. What you consume in food isn't really important. It's about the energy consumption and how that works on the scales, okay? So hence why it's called energy balance, because there is a balancing equation if you want, right? So I'm going to go into more detail now in respect to how both energy in and energy out work. So energy out. So this is really important, okay? So as you can see on the screen, you've got your pyramid, okay? You've got your BMR at the bottom, okay? So this is the biggest amount of energy that you're going to expend in any average normal day, okay? Now, as you can see, there's lots of other things in there, but bear with me, stick with the BMR for the time being. So that's the biggest amount. It stands for your basal metabolic rate, okay? So your basal metabolic rate is basically the things that are happening behind the scenes. So it's the, things like your heart beating, your lungs, supporting you in breathing, your brain function, your things that are happening behind the scenes. Almost like if you imagine a swimming pool, there's a plant room behind, like keeping it going and keeping everything as it should be. And that's kind of how you should be viewing your BMR. Now, it can be improved, shall we say, through things like additional muscle on the body and things like that. But it's it's completely blown out of proportion on social media and online and things like that in respect to the the benefits of having more muscle. So there's people out there that are claiming, a pound of muscle will give you an extra 100 calories a day, which is absolutely ridiculous. And the science is just not there to support it. What the science does say is that for every pound of muscle you put on or have within the body, it's about 7 calories per day. So it's really not a lot to write home about, is it? So if you put on 10 pounds of muscle, as amazing as that would be for some people, like if you're doing it to get more calories, you're probably looking in the wrong place. And that's a lot of effort for 70, maybe 80 tops extra calories per day. It's not even an apple. So bear that in mind. But if you were sick for whatever the reason and you spent the day in bed, as you can see, 60 to 75% of your calories are still being, expended through your BMR. Okay, so even if you didn't really move much and do anything, there's your heart's still beating, those things are still happening behind the scenes. Which leads me nicely on to NEAT. So NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and basically is the activity that you do that isn't purposeful exercise. So it's things like walking, gardening, taking the kids to school, like whatever it be, like running around after the kids, like any activity that requires energy. Which is obviously, everything. Even if I got up now, walked to the fridge, and came back, like that would be NEAT. Like I would be moving, and that's what's you'd put under the classification of NEAT. Now, unfortunately, NEAT over the years is just going down and down and down. Like things are becoming much more convenient for people. Even just things like that I've got a Tesco's up the road from me. And it's raining currently. Would I walk there or would I drive? I'd like to think I'd walk, but it's raining, so actually I'd probably drive. And most people do this, and instead of taking the stairs, they take the escalators. Instead of taking the stairs, they take the lift or whatever it be. Instead of parking slightly further away on a nice day to go to the gym, ironically, or to park up at work or whatever, they park as close as they possibly can. And then NEAT just keeps going lower and lower and lower. And we know through the evidence that as you get older as well, your NEAT goes down, 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 down. Okay, so we want to keep that NEAT as high as possible. Like I've put in the on the slides, generally speaking, it's sort of 15 to 30% for most people, but it can be much, much higher than that. If you imagine a postman, you probably won't know many overweight postmen just because they're constantly moving all the time. So NEAT is really, really high. If you can get your NEAT up, you'll expend more calories. If you expend more calories, obviously it's going to play into the energy balance equation that I mentioned on the last slide. So this is one that's controllable. This is one that you need to focus on. Then you've got your TEFs, your thermic effect of food. So your thermic effect of food, quite simply put, is the energy it costs your body to digest the food that you consume. Now, different macronutrients, by the way, macronutrients standing for protein, carbs, and fats, they will digest food at different energy costs. So I won't go into that now, but it's just worth noting that protein does require the most energy to digest. So one of the other benefits of consuming a higher protein diet than you probably have, because most people are quite low on the protein front, is that the thermic effect of food is going to help. But as you can see, that's about 10%, so it's not a huge amount. And then at the top, for most people, an average person, exercise, if you do it, is going to result in about 10% of your energy out, which is really not a lot, right? Like most people will jump to the gym come January because they're like, oh, I'll put on all my weight over Christmas, I need to go to the gym and lose weight. And it's like, no, the reason you've put weight on is because you're consuming too many calories for what your body requires. You do just need to change that. Now you could do it by adding in exercise. Like that's fine if that's what you want to do. But for most people, and I've been a gym manager, I've been a gym manager where I've had 1,000 people sign up in January, and out of those 1,000, the amount of people that are still there come April is shocking. So it's like you probably don't really want to do it. You're almost forcing yourself to do it, and it's like you're looking in the wrong areas. Look at your low-hanging fruit. Look at your NEAT. Look at maybe reducing your calories slightly through the consumption, so energy in. And do things that are maybe a little bit more sustainable. Like changing things up in respect to your calorie consumption. There might be some really easy wins in there. For example, changing a Coke to a Diet Coke. Having one cookie instead of two. Having water instead of juices and things like that. All these things can lower your calories in. Then if you look at your energy out, which obviously we're looking at now, and you up your NEAT and you're paying attention to that element of the equation, suddenly you might find yourself in a deficit, and it's like, actually, this isn't too hard, this is quite easy, and then you just need to be consistent with it. And whatever you do, adherence is going to be the most important thing. So, and I'm going to come on to that shortly. Actually, I'm going to come on to that right now. So mindset, okay? So mindset, we talk about mindset. People talk about mindset a lot. We talk about it a lot on the program. We like to get into people's mindsets in respect to how they view things. You know, a lot of people are all or nothing. For me, that's not the best way to look at things. But we will get into that sort of thing with all of our members because, you know, we're very different to other programs out there. But anyway, adherence is key, like I've just mentioned. So whatever approach that you have towards your diet, like even like if you're not a member with us and you have no interest in being a member with us, but this stuff is making sense, but you're with Slimming World or you're with Weight Watchers or whoever it is, it doesn't matter. If you can't adhere to it, I'm telling you now, stop doing it. What's the benefit? If you can't adhere to a calorie deficit, it's pointless going into it because you're just setting yourself up to fail. So you have to find an approach that gives you a calorie deficit that works for you and is adherable for you. So for some people, intermittent fasting people love, so basically skipping breakfast. If that works for you, then great, it's not a problem. But for other people, if I said, oh, would you think about skipping breakfast to push your calories later on into the day? They'd be like, oh no, I like my breakfast, I don't want to do that. So it needs to be personal to every single individual, and it needs to be adherable. Okay, so adherence really is key. So bear that in mind. If you've done Slimming World or Weight Watchers or keto or whatever it is, time and time again, and you're not adhering long term to see any success, stop going back to it. It's a waste of time and a waste of money. Start looking at something else, whether it be us or even anyone else. So as long as you can adhere to it, then great. Like that's gonna help you with achieving your goals. Now, second point on this slide is like a positive mindset, which sounds a bit cheesy, I know, but you know that when you change a behaviour, which I'm going to talk to you in a second, when you're trying to form a new habit, you change a behaviour, whatever it might be, implement a new behaviour, there is a certain amount of effort that's required at the start. And if you go into it with a mindset like, oh, I can't really be bothered, don't bother. Like you're clearly not in a position where you want to diet and you want to lose body fat, and you're looking at things all wrong, and you need to get a grip of that first. Now, obviously, we can help with that stuff, but at the end of the day, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And if, like I say, if you've not got the right mindset going into it, and you don't want to do these things, and you don't have an open mind, and what we call a growth mindset, then yeah, like don't bother. Like I say, there's not really a lot of point. You need to address that first, and then go on to the other things. It's like when people come to me and go, "Oh, I want to lose all this weight. I want to do X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, we get talking, and they've got so many other issues and stresses and priorities, I guess, in their life. That it's like, do you know what? You're probably not ready to do this yet. Like, why don't you look at these things first, get them under control, get a grip on those, and then we can start looking at some really, really easy wins. And when people do listen and do that and come back to us, and they're in a position to lose some weight, lose some fat, whatever it is that their goals are, you know, they thank us. Like, they thank us hugely, and they're like, you know, I'm really pleased I did that, because otherwise I would have just gone into another program, failed at it, and just, you know, reinforced negative habits. So bear that in mind. And in respect to behaviours, habits and addictions, so like I've put on the screen, so we don't really talk about addictions too much, but the reason it's up there is because it's kind of like an invisible line that gets crossed between each one of them. So for something to be a habit, you have to behave in a certain way first. And then obviously some habits can form into addictions, which we don't want, and isn't really our bag, it isn't really what we do. But it's kind of like how this like behaviour, habits, addiction thing works. So we just put it up just to highlight it. And some people can get addicted to things like tracking and things like that, but it's such a small percent. And we do keep an eye on those things. So, but behaviours and habits is what I want to talk about now. So for something to be a habit, like I say, you have to behave in a certain way. So let's imagine, I don't know, someone like for people that have got children, you would have taught your children, obviously, providing they're of a certain age, but you would have taught your children to, you know, do the shoelaces up, and you would have been taught that at some point in your life. Like now, it's a habit. Like as an adult, we can do our shoelaces up. It's done, and you know we can be talking to other people. We can be having an argument with our partner, like whatever, and we can just do our shoelaces up. And there's no effort put into it in respect to thinking about it. You just do it. It's just a habit. But at some point, it would have been something you had to think about, and therefore would have been a purposeful behaviour. And if you ever watch children learn to have to do their shoelaces up, it's kind of frustrating because you're almost like, oh, I just want to do it for you because it's so easy. But obviously, that's not part of the learning process. But it's the same with any habit. You need to put in a certain amount of effort and a certain amount of behavior change before it clicks, and you can cross this invisible line between like, oh, I can just do it. And I always remember this one is like quite a personal one for me because I always remember learning how to drive and being so frustrated and being like, I'm just not clicking. I'm trying my best, and the effort I spent so much effort in, it just didn't seem to click. And then one day, bang, and all the problems I was having just seemed to disappear. And sometimes you have to go through a bit of pain and a lot of effort and a certain amount of behaviour change before that thing clicks. And often the reality is people quit things before they get to that point. So hopefully, even if I got through to one person there, keep going. Like if the approach is good and it's sensible and it's all the right things, just keep going. Like a habit isn't formed overnight. And please don't quote me on this for any evidence-based people out there because I might have this slightly wrong, but I think this is right. A habit, like there's loads of crap out there about how long a habit takes to form. But as I understand it, a habit from the evidence, a habit can take somewhere between 25 days and something like 231 days. It's something like crazy like that. And the mean from a study that was done is something like 66 days. Which is ironic because I'm 6 days off of that as a program. But the point I'm making is like obviously it's different for different people, and sometimes you do have to do things for quite a long time before they really stick and become a habit, and you have to think a lot less about them. So yeah, bear that in mind. Goal setting. So this is really, really important, and breaking down that goal. So we talk about that a lot in the program. If someone's got a goal for whatever the reason, we don't tend to focus on weight here. It's fat loss, not weight loss. But if someone had a 20 pounds weight loss goal, they want to lose 20 pounds of weight. Let's say it's for a sporting event, so it's relevant. But they want to lose 20 pounds. If you focus on that 20 pounds, that's like a huge amount, right? Like it is the end goal, but you need to reverse that goal and break it down. So let's say they had 10 weeks to do it. That's £2 a week. At the halfway point, you need to be at 10 pounds, obviously. But then when you break it down even further and go, right, okay, well, if I need to lose £2 a week, like what do I need to do to do that? Because suddenly £2 a week doesn't seem that much. And I've seen people, throw their toys out of the pram in different programs on social media, not to name them, because they've only lost £2 in a week. And it's like, yeah, but if you did that for 10 weeks, you'd be £20 lighter. But people can't see that far ahead because they're in like a bit of a fixed mindset. So yeah, bear that in mind. But then break those goals down. So how do I lose £2 a week? Well, I need to up my NEAT. I need to look at my calories. I need to look at the energy balance. I need to stay focused, and I can do that by doing X, Y, and Z through check sheets or whatever it be. And you just keep breaking it down and break that goal down, and suddenly it becomes really digestible and really manageable. But if you just say to someone, I want you to lose 20 pounds, they're like, oh, like where do I start? I can't possibly do that. So, and that's where we come in and as supportive coaches. And then last but not least, your reason why. So your reason why is something that you really do need to go away and have a think about. And I'm going to challenge everyone watching this to do so. Go and have a think about, like, why are you doing this? What's the point? Like, are you doing it for health reasons? Are you doing it for, your looks? Are you doing it for confidence? Are you doing it because you want to have a child? Are you doing it for whatever the reason? Like, go and have a think about it. But go and ask yourself at least a couple of times, because often people come back with an answer and I'm like, yeah, that's not the real reason. Like dig a little bit deeper. So yeah, go away and have a good think about that, and maybe come back and comment on the thread and tell us what your reason why is. That would be really cool. So just want to close off now by answering some myths and some top tips. So myth, starvation mode. This grinds my gears. This is basically the theory of consuming too few calories, so well into a calorie deficit. So you're really, really low into a calorie deficit. Will put your body into starvation mode, and then when you do consume food, your body will store it as fat. Absolutely not true. There's not a single study in the world that supports this. End of story, okay? If you are consuming less calories than your body requires, if you're in a genuine calorie deficit, you will lose weight. And unfortunately, the horrible example I have is, people in World War One or Two or any type of war that, were put into camps and genuinely starved didn't struggle to lose weight. They died, unfortunately, of, starvation. Starvation mode is absolutely not a thing. And if you think it is, comment, and message me, and provide some proof, because we look at the evidence and we know the evidence and we know that this isn't true. What can happen is something called metabolic adaptation. But even then, if you're in a genuine deficit, it's not going to change anything. You're still going to lose weight. And what often happens is people restrict themselves and then they binge like mad, and that binge is way higher on the calorie front than they realise. It's very, very high in calories. And they're just, they've been in a really deep deficit for a certain part of the week, but then their surplus is so high on the others that it doesn't leave them in a net movement of being in a calorie deficit over the course of the week. So, for example, if you needed 20,000 calories over the week to be in a calorie deficit, and you binge and go mad and you have 25,000, and that puts you into a surplus, it doesn't matter what you did Monday to Thursday, or whatever it might be. You ended the week on a surplus, and that's where people, tend to fall into that trap. Anyway, and then top tip. So menstrual cycle. So I have done, and we'll do another one actually. Menstrual cycle video. Sorry, not video, lecture even, on this subject, because the top tip I'm going to give right now, and keep it short and sweet, is ladies, give yourself a break. You go through different physiological states during your menstrual cycle. So two main ones are your follicular stage and your luteal phase. And during those stages and phases, you go through further changes in those as well. And it's tough. Guys don't get it. I can understand it physiologically, but I can't understand it, through actually experiencing it, because I'm a guy. But it's tough. And what I know from it, and what the science tells us, is that you will have different metabolic spikes. There'll be times where you actually burn more calories at rest. There will be times where, depression, balance, all sorts of different things can be affected. Hormonal changes that happen every single month, and often, I see this in so many different women, is they stick to a deficit for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they get to a certain point in the menstrual cycle where it's really tough, and then they just kind of not lose the plot. That sounds horrific, but they just end up consuming way too many calories, and then they completely undo the 2 to 3 weeks worth of work that they've done, and then they end up going round and round in this horrible cycle. Now, we get into the detail of that, and we help you, and we help you manage it, and we help you, sometimes it's just going, do you know what, have some more calories, but only have this much instead of this much. The average amount of additional calories burnt through a certain phase within your menstrual cycle, depending on the woman, is between 100 and 300 calories a day. Unfortunately, women have a lot more calories than that during that phase because they're struggling for whatever the reason. So, ladies, give yourself a break, but upskill yourself, talk to us, talk to people that know what they're talking about it, and come up with a plan to manage it if you're someone that does get quite badly affected at different points in your menstrual cycle. Some women breeze through it and it's fine. Others, I've got clients that are pretty much in bed. They're off sick work because their menstrual cycle hits them that hard. And if it's coming every month, you need to come up with a plan, because otherwise you're just going to go round and round in circles. So, next myth, protein for non-meat eaters. People think, I can't possibly get my protein in because I'm a vegetarian or vegan or whatever it be. I'm just here to tell you that's crap. You can do it. We help vegetarians and vegans, get to their protein target. It's fine. It's not a problem. There's a couple of things to be taken into consideration, but we talk about that, with each person that comes through the program that struggles with their protein. So, don't let that put you off. If you don't eat meat, it's fine. You can still get a decent amount, or at least an appropriate amount of protein in, for your goals. So yeah, don't worry about it. Top tip, what gets measured gets managed. So do you track your calories? Because if you don't, I'm here to at least tempt you in thinking that you might want to start thinking about it as a minimum, because what gets measured gets managed. That makes sense, right? And the example I'm going to give, which hopefully you'll be like, yeah, that's simple and that makes sense, I'm not sure I can argue with that, is if you had money problems, the first thing you probably do, if you didn't have rich parents and running off to them, is is you go, right, I need to see how much money I'm earning, I need to see how much money I'm spending, and you'd look at it and you'd look at the numbers, and then you go, right, okay, well, I need to tweak this and I need to tweak that, X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 and then you come up with a plan. Like, that's all I'm saying, do with your calories. But even more, even better than that, if you track your consumption, not only will it tell you where you're at because you're tracking it, but you'll get to learn what's in food. And half of the time, the big battle with people is just getting them to understand what they're eating because they have no idea. So not only is it an educational tool, but it's a really good tool to ensure, or not ensure, but definitely support you in being in a calorie deficit. So something to think about. And then last but not least, good and bad food. So we never tell people that food is bad. People can eat whatever they want, and don't get me wrong. Obviously, the volume of that food may have health implications, but like no one food is bad. Not even a bad meal, but there's definitely bad diets. Just like, so if you had like, everyone likens a salad to being good. If you had like a good meal and say it was a salad, yeah, it's not really going to change anything there and then, is it? But if you do it over time, it's going to obviously compound and it's going to give you positive effects potentially, depending on what's happening elsewhere. But it's the same with bad food. Like if you have a burger, like it's not bad food. You shouldn't label it as bad. You shouldn't demonize it. Just like you shouldn't put food on a pedestal. However, if you keep making choices and decisions that constantly put you into a surplus and constantly mean that you're over consuming on trans fats and things that aren't particularly good for you, then yeah, like you'll probably have negative effects related to that. It's what you do over time really that matters. And your current position, like it or not, and this is a big reality check for a lot of you, your current position, whether you like it or not, is a direct reflection of the choices you've made up until this point. End of story. Yeah. However, if you want to change that, you've got people like me and my team that can help and can educate and can support and personalise things to get you to where you want to get to. So yeah, just bear that in mind, but try not to label foods as good or bad. Something that irritates me when programs do that. It's not needed. Just get educated on them. Different foods have different nutritional values, of course, but it doesn't make it good or bad necessarily. And then last one, top tip. So the scales. So hopefully I've talked a lot of sense here, and hopefully I've kept you this long to now listen to probably the scariest thought of all, and that's think about how often you weigh, and if you're weighing more than weekly, it's probably worth reviewing that and having a chat with someone about it. So many people are obsessed with their weight, and like I talked about earlier, weight is not the goal. It should be fat loss. The scales will simply tell you how much you weigh, which is great for certain things, but it shouldn't be the only form of progress. And if you weighed the current weight that you weigh, but you were very, very, everything about you was perfect in respect to how you feel and how you look, the way you want to look, would it matter what you weigh? And I very much doubt it would. Also, for the ladies that are watching, during your menstrual cycle, like we talked about earlier, through your follicular luteal phase, you will change physiological states and you will hold water at different rates. So to weigh yourself weekly and compare is completely pointless. If you're going to weigh weekly, which I would prefer you weigh monthly, but obviously it's up to everyone else. It's your choice. If you're going to weigh weekly, compare week 1 with week 1 the next month. So it's like week 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I'd urge you to do monthly, and I'd urge you not to really worry about it too much. So something to think about, okay? And last but not least, ask me anything. This is going to go out on social media. It's going to go out on YouTube. It's going to go out to the masses. This is the opportunity to ask me questions. I hope what I've said has been useful. I hope that I've explained it well. Obviously, this is not a simple, a simple thing to talk about. People go, oh, it's just about calories in and out, and just put the fork down and things like that. And it's like, yeah, but it's not that simple. Like, if it was that simple, like, we wouldn't have an obesity issue across the world, like globally. Yes, calories count, but it's not the only thing that counts. I hope that makes sense. There's obviously other things that are impacted, and we didn't even touch on sleep. And sleep is a big issue across the world, and does have a direct impact on how much much fat you lose within a calorie deficit, and that's probably going to come as news to a lot of you. So yeah, please do ask questions. Please do share. It will go a long way. Yeah, thank you very much for your time.